And welcome back to coverage here of the Players Tour Finals. Marshall Sutcliffe with Paul Cheon. Thank you so much for coming along. This is the exciting part where we get to work our way through the top 8. Since it is double elimination, we've got kind of a crazy bracket situation that you got to see in between. And right now we're heading into the upper semifinals. That means that our first matchup that we're going to be watching here is Riku Kumagai versus Alan Wu. The players are ready. Let's head on down and see how this one plays out. Well, Paul, it's been a day of upsets, at least from our predictions or from what the numbers said coming in. And that leaves us with Riku Kumagai on Mono Black Aggro versus Alan Wu playing Reclamation. What do you make of the matchup here?
Well, you know, I think a lot of the players coming into this tournament had Team of Reclamation on their mind as the deck to beat. And Riku Kumagai had a pretty good record. He went 5-2 against Reclamation decks in the event. However, one of his losses was to Alan Wu. And when Alan Wu was interviewed earlier, he felt that his configuration, his deck configuration, had a better balance in terms of having a deck that's playable against aggro, but also fine in the mirror. And I think, you know, one of the cards that you can look to is a card like Nightpack Ambusher, which is a really great way to surprise a creature, get in the way of that, in the meanwhile also providing a threat against other Team of Reclamation mirrors. I would have to say that most people are likely rooting for Riku, and he probably has an okay matchup here. But given that given that we're currently 0 for 3 on predictions, I'm going to mix it up this time and go for Alan Wu here as the victor.
Oh, I'll take Riku Kumagai then if I get to have the solid, good prediction. Okay. And you see that...
I changed my mind. I changed my mind. I see his hand. I think I like Riku Kumagai here.
Oh, that's great. Based on the opening hands, you've changed. The players were just getting set to get underway there because Alan got to decide as the higher seed whether to be on the play or the draw, and they were just making sure that worked out properly. But as you can see, double Kitesail, Freebooter, Hunted Nightmare, Duress, and some pressure here from Kumagai in the form of Knight of the Ebon Legion. This is an excellent hand and should be able to tear apart what's going on their side. Interestingly, though, Alan does have Nightpack Ambusher, the card that you just mentioned, Paul, in hand, and currently no answer for that from Kumagai.
Yeah. The problem here, though, is it's not going to be too much of a surprise given that Riku is packing a ton of hand disruption in his main deck. The fact that he's got Duress and Kitesail Freebooter means, you know, it's a lot easier to play around. Yeah. Now that you know that your opponent has access to that. Also, Alan, without that kind of explosive growth spiral draw this time around, means that Riku is going to be able to put on a ton of pressure here before Alan can respond. I mean, he's got that mystical dispute, but not a whole lot here.
Now, but what about just the raw power of the Nightpack Ambusher? Sure, it's not going to get flashed in and eat a creature in this scenario, but if Alan can get it on the battlefield and Kumagai doesn't find an answer for it, I mean, it does just sit there and put up a huge amount of power and toughness. Will it be too slow here?
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I mean, Riku's creatures currently are able to attack through the Nightpack Ambusher. He's got the Knight of the Ebon Legion, and he's going to be able to play a Hunted Nightmare this turn. However, I mean, Alan has a really, really great turn 4 play here in Wilderness Reclamation into Nightpack Ambusher. But Riku does have Kitesail Freebooter here, going to be able to take that Reclamation. So Alan really is just going to be stuck with one card, basically, left in hand because Riku is likely going to go for the Duress here, right?
Yeah, you know, it's really tough because the Kitesail Freebooters, you know, they are likely to stay on the battlefield here, especially in this game where there's just no answer in sight for Alan, you know, if Kumagai does use the Duress. Although, interestingly, it looks like he says, look, you're only going to get to play the Nightpack Ambusher next turn anyway. There's no red mana sources on the battlefield, so I'll just run out my other Knight of the Ebon Legion.
Yeah, that is completely correct. This Expansion Explosion not doing a whole lot here without that Wilderness Reclamation that Alan had in hand.
So it's kind of Nightpack Ambusher or bust here. As we see, Kumagai hasn't actually found an answer just yet for the Ambusher, and he's just going to go ahead and attack in. As you mentioned, the 2 copies of Knight of the Ebon Legion are like, sure, throw it down.
Yeah, and this is going to be exactly 4 damage here, and Alan can't just flash into the ambusher and block one of the Knight of the Ebon Legions, as Riku can simply just pump it to a 4 or 5.
Yeah, with the draw of Mystical Dispute here for Alan might lead him to just say, fine, I'll just take the damage, I don't have any good blocks anyway, and maybe try to nab something with the Dispute. Unfortunately, here comes Duress.
Yeah, and he's probably just going to take the Dispute at this point, because he wants to just... Oh no, I thought he was going to take the Dispute here to put on additional pressure to safely resolve this Hunted Nightmare.
Yeah.
But I guess if he does go with the Mystical Dispute, that means Alan is not casting Nightpack Ambusher.
Right, it's almost like a tempo duress, right? It's like you can only do one of these things. You can either keep the Hunted Nightmare off the battlefield, or you can get your Nightpack Ambusher down. The critical thing here is that Alan really wants to get the Ambusher down so that if he doesn't draw anything next turn, he can just say go and have the 7 power and 7 toughness available. But it looks like he says, nope, I'm going to have to spend this counterspell here, but trigger on both Knight of the Ebon Legion. This is falling apart very quickly. Yeah, Nightpack Ambusher is a good card against them, but if it's all you've got, it's probably not enough.
Yeah, this is really, really rough. I mean, this Ambusher just not doing a whole lot here. Alan's going to have to take, what is this, 6 damage, potentially 9?
Yes.
And Alan also just doesn't have a ton of ways to deal with these Kitesail freebooters, especially game 1. Not a lot of removal. I believe he has 1 Brazen Borrower to be able to bounce one of these freebooters.
Yeah, you can get your Nightpack Ambusher down, but it just looks too little too late. And given the construct of the deck here from Alan Wu, there you go. Wilderness Reclamation doesn't do anything.
Yeah, I mean, what a draw here from Riku Kumagai, just being able to curve out beautifully while also just being able to disrupt Alan's entire hand. I mean, he was able to take 3 cards out of his hand while applying pressure.
Yeah, I mean, this is exactly why Riku Kumagai is sitting here in our top 8, right? This is what he did throughout the course of the tournament. He built this deck to tear apart Temur Reclamation, and it does. It is a surgical tool that is perfectly suited for the job, and you saw why. Cards like Kitesail Freebooter have been legal and standard for a very long time, have seen, play here and there, but you can see in this particular matchup, game 1, those cards just disappeared. I mean, those were gone from his hand, and he took damage from those freebooters, and it was relevant damage too, because it added up to be enough to get the Knight of the Ebon Legions counters, and that happened for the duration of that game. Those freebooters never left the battlefield, and they really weren't going to unless there was an explosion pointed at one of them, in which case I think Kumagai's fine with that too. So, really nice setup here for Kumagai, building his deck perfectly against the matchup that he anticipated the most and happened to get here in our upper semi.
Yeah, look at Kumagai here. Actually, having a copy of Agonizing Remorse in the sideboard, a card you typically would think would have been tailor-made for this matchup, and actually choosing to go for a little more removal by bringing in additional copies of Murderous Rider here to make sure that he has answers to those Elder Gargaroths that Alan Wu has in his sideboard.
Really smart from Riku, and I gotta tell you, I've been really impressed by his play throughout the course of the tournament, particularly his understanding of the balance needed for an aggressive deck like this. Like, leaving an Agonizing Remorse on the board shows you that he understands that he cannot just put all hand disruption and removal in this deck post-board and expect to actually win. He simply must apply pressure to the life total of Alan Wu. Then he needs to support that with hand disruption. It is a tricky balance that you need to strike. I think the temptation a lot of time is just to board in all the duresses, all the Agonizing Remorses, but how many times have you seen it, Paul, where somebody rips your hand apart with duresses, Agonizing Remorses, and then you just draw the thing that you need?
Yeah, no, definitely. I was actually getting in some early morning arena practice, and that literally happened where my opponent cast 4 duresses on me, but because they weren't able to apply pressure, I just ultimately came back and won the game. So Riku also recognizing that you can't over sideboard hand disruption, and just making sure that he keeps enough relevant threats and also has enough answers to some of Alan's sideboard cards. The Elder Gargaroth that you see in his hand is extremely powerful in this matchup, and Riku needs to have answers. Additionally, we saw Alan Wu keep in or board in additional copies of Brazen Borrower as a way to block and trade with Kitesail Freebooters and Rankle, and making sure that you have enough removal even for those creatures is huge.
This is getting very precarious here for Alan Wu. He has yet to find land number 4, and he does not have a red source yet. Staring down that flame sweep as, you know, that could be a backbreaker at some point here, and he's forced to make a decision. Oh, and he didn't hit off the growth spiral either.
Yeah, if he hit a if he hit a red source off that growth spiral, he would have been able to get both of these creatures off the battlefield, as the gutter bones would have died, the timber would have taken 2 damage, and that also would have died afterwards.
Oh, this is so brutal. Is this falling apart for Alan Wu? He got absolutely ran over in the first game by Riku, and now it looks like that's the pattern that's happening here too. Riku can even afford to just run out his Spawn of Mayhem here. There's no red mana source on the battlefield. He doesn't even have to worry about a second one here.
Yeah, and the thing is, I mean, even if Alan found the red source at this point, it would have been too late. The flame sweep would only kill 1 creature that's in play right now.
Yeah, it would only kill Gutter Bones. So he's going to have to go for Desperation Uro, but this, look, another miss. Wow. Okay. How many lands does he play? 28, 29? I mean, some of the players that in the field were playing 30 lands.
Yeah, this is just a lethal attack. I mean, he's just going to pump Knight of Ebon Legion, and this is an attack for 13. Wow, this was fast.
Wow, incredible. Riku Kumagai, it's like 2 in the morning where he's at right now, and he's just like takes a sip of his coffee and bang, 2-0 victory over Alan Wu. He made it look easy, Paul. That was insane.
Yeah, I mean, just the combination of making sure that he has that 1 drop into curving into some disruption and just beatdowns. At the same time, of course, Alan Wu this game, you know, he did keep a hand with 2 lands, had a bunch of growth spirals, really needed to string a bunch of lands together to even have a chance in this game. And the fact that he wasn't able to find that red source in time really, I think, was the biggest factor in game 2.
Definitely. You know, you got to remember, though, right? The players that bring these aggressive monocolored decks, they get to scoop up those wins, right? Where, you know, if you're playing Bant or something and your opponent misses a land drop or 2, they may have time to come back, especially with the aid of cards like Uro and Growth Spiral. But here, it was the door got slammed on Alan Wu very quickly. Yeah, he got a little unlucky, missed a few land drops, but Kumagai says, I brought the tool for the job, and he got the job done. That's 2-0 for Riku Kumagai. We are going to take a short break. When we come back, we'll have more from the Upper Semis. Don't go anywhere. And this one has really started to fall apart for Jean-Emmanuel. What does a comeback look like here?
Well, we're going to see a big turn for him, too, because he has that same combination of Wilderness Reclamation and Expansion. Now, how the players each choose to utilize their mana is not obvious to me.
Oh,
but
I see.
Depra will certainly play Wilderness Reclamation here and will certainly have access to at least 9 mana on his end step.
He floated all the mana here, but as you said, he has the Expansion Explosion that he can fire off kind of at his leisure almost, because Shark Typhoon means that he's not taking damage from the shark. He also got the 3 life off of Uro there and is back up to 6.
Boy, yeah. Because you ask yourself, like, is it going to get any better for me if I wait?
Jean-Emmanuel's going to kick it off with a Growth Spiral. Must find a way to interact with this spell on the stack or it's over. There it is, Growth Spiral. He finds a mountain.
Play a land and cycle the Shark Typhoon for 1 more shot at Negate or Ether Gust.
That's it. That's exactly where we're at. Here we go. Shark Typhoon cycle. Try to hit something. X equals 0. It's Mystical Dispute. Oh, not the one that Jean-Emmanuel needed. All Murray has to do is pay for it, and he will be your champion. There it goes. Players Tour Online goes to Ryuji Murray.
Dragonfire off the top is going to allow Ray to be able to 2-for-1 himself again to get rid of the second Regisaur, but now this, this Strider is still a big threat here.
having a great card in hand. We see a scry into another Woe Strider. There's a Cindervines down, able to take out a Reclamation. Ping for all the non-creature spells that get cast.
Yeah, that was a perfect draw for William there. Gives him a great turn here with the double spell. Two very powerful ones at that. Bottom. Definitely not ideal for Ray there. A bottom spiral and pull. And
Nightpack Ambusher with only one green mana.
Source.
That's devastating.
That's definitely feels bad.
Ray sitting here with the dog.
That honestly, that Nightpack Ambusher could have really brought Ray back into this game, but being stuck on single green is pretty brutal.
Yeah, would have been able to block that first Woe Strider, generate a token.
Yeah.
Block the second Woe Strider every single turn using the tokens being generated. Instead, we're seeing potentially just a game get ended here. A second Cindervines. Oh no. Right, you are not in a good spot.
Big time draw there. And yeah, I don't see, there's no storm drafts in Ray's. Oh, looks like.
Democratic just going threat after threat after threat. Here comes the Wilderness Reclamation, unable to even impact this game state. In fact, would end the game even sooner by giving a target for the Cindervines.
Wow, and there it is.
That's game. William Craddock, our champion from Players Tour 3.
And welcome back to coverage here of the Players Tour Finals. Marshall Sutcliffe with Paul Cheon. Boy, if you blinked, you missed it. Our first upper semi is already done. Riku Kumagai ran over Alan Wu. That leaves us, though, with another. We've got Christopher Larson facing down Christoph Prinz. Now, we actually had a chance to have a quick chat with our players. We'll start off with Chris Larson.
I'm here with Christopher Larson, the Danish juggernaut who snuck into our top 8 in 8th place playing Jund Sacrifice. First of all, congratulations, Chris. Playing Jund Sac, a deck that certainly wasn't the best deck in the room at the time, but you've obviously done very, very well with it.
I honestly tried to play a couple of games with Timber Reclamation, but needless to say, I would rather do anything else than play that enchantment. That was rough.
Yeah. Certainly not a deck for everyone, as I'm sure many people will agree. And, I'm not a fan of the Sacrifice deck, but I know that many people around the world will be barracking hard for any non-rec deck in the upcoming top 8. Talk us through your preparation. What are you going to get up to in readiness for the top 8, given we've got a much longer time to prepare for it than usual?
I tested with David, the Italian guy. He played almost the same list as me. And then we just described that playing Timber Reclamation mirrors is a rough day at the office, so we stuck to what we knew and went back to the drawing room, and I played, instead of Giganta, I played Citadels, and that card was bonkers. All hail the Citadel.
All right, we've got another convert to Bolas over here. It's good to see, Chris. Mate, you've worked very hard for this. You've snuck in again on Breakers with an excellent 4 result during the Swiss here. How are you feeling? Are you feeling confident about the top 8, given that there was a bit of a sweat there at the end of the Swiss? Are you feeling good about your chances in the finals?
I have to be honest, I haven't given that a thought. I thought the top 8 was locked, and then I was thinking about whether or not I should draw to log up top 16. And then suddenly I was paired against Cannister, and he asked me, would you like to draw? And I'm like, no, thank you. And if you watch the match, you saw game 2, mulligan to 5. I was pretty sure I was dead. And then he got really unlucky, and I got really fortunate. And then we got in here. Now we're here.
Congratulations once again, the Danish juggernaut getting across the line, an absolute all-star contender. And mate, well done. Congratulations. Thanks for joining us, and the very best of luck to you in the top 8.
So that's what Chris Larson had to say about it. But of course, he's got his opponent on the other side of the battlefield. That is Christoph Prinz, and Riley had a chance to catch up with him as well. Let's hear from that.
I'm here with Christoph Prinz, who is another one of our top 8 competitors for this Players Tour final. Christoph, thanks for joining us, and congratulations, my friend. A great result.
Thanks for having me.
So you played 4-color Reclamation all the way to round number 9 without picking up a loss. Really the perfect way to start the tournament. It must have felt pretty good with the right deck and a bunch of wins early on in the tournament.
Yeah, that was pretty sick. That was one of my better runs at a tournament for sure.
why did you pick the 4-color deck over the Teamer deck? Were you just thinking Teferi was just too strong not to play?
Also, Dovin's Veto has some implications because stopping your opponent from landing turn 5 Reclamation with Dispute backup is pretty big. Mostly those 2 cards.
Well, it obviously did really, really well for you, and you've got about a week to prepare for the top 8. So what does the next week look like for you? What are you going to be spending your time doing before the top 8 begins?
So I'll probably look at all the decks my possible opponents are playing and like figure out some sideboards plans for all the matchups for on the play and on the draw. Maybe I should also work on my master thesis a bit.
That's maybe a second priority. Well, listen, mate, before we let you go, of course, you're playing from Germany, from Hanover, and it gets pretty late, these tournaments here. How have you adjusted to the quote-unquote jet lag for these tournaments? Because, you've had to stay up till, 2, 3 in the morning to finish things off. How has that affected your game?
Yesterday, I have gone for a walk between later rounds and it was fine. And, today I did adjust a bit toward better. But I think my play still suffered in the later rounds.
Yeah, for sure. So, it's definitely sticky. It's definitely tricky staying up that late. So well done. Well, I mean, an incredible performance, getting all the way to the top 8, even with the tiredness hanging over you. So congratulations, mate. Well done. Thanks for joining us, and best of luck in the top 8.
And there you go. You got to hear it from Christoph Prinz himself. Again, these 2 players, though, they're playing right now. In fact, we're coming in game number 2. Let's head on down to that right now. We'll get you caught up on all the action as these 2 battle it out. Christopher Larson having taken down game number 1 with his Jund sacrifice list. I'm still surprised that this deck is still around and doing so well, Paul. It just felt like this deck had kind of had its day and it was over, and Larson's just like, no, you're not done yet.
I mean, Larson mentioned this before. When I put counter spells in my deck, I tend to win less, was exactly what he said. So maybe Team of Reclamation is not the deck you should be trying to play, and instead he went for the Jund sacrifice option, which is an extremely consistent deck, right?
Yes, it is.
You're going to hit your land drops, you're going to draw a ton of cards, so if the games go kind of long, I like your chances in a lot of different matchups. So him also, by the way, winning game 1, absolutely huge in this matchup, because that's the game where his configuration is not as great for this matchup. However, after sideboard, he's got lots of ways to interact with opposing Wilderness Reclamations and additional hand disruption.
That's right. And in this case, though, Chris Larson's hand looks pretty terrible. He's got 5 lands and a Woe Strider. That's what he's doing. Meanwhile, you see for Christoph Prinz, he's kind of got the action. In many ways, it's all about getting lands onto the battlefield for Christoph, and he's got the tools to do that. Although that was Agonizing Remorse off the top of the library there for Larson.
Yeah, and that was big here because Christoph Prinz actually was just going to have mana to be able to cast an explosion here for
2 or 3.
For 3, it looks like, and just refill up. And that is something that often happens in this type of matchup where the games kind of go long. Oftentimes, you're just going end of turn, expansion, explosion, kind of doing its best Sphinx's Revelation impersonation, and just kind of casting it for 3 or 4 because that's still very, very good in this type of matchup.
Okay, well, it is a top deck war at this point, and so far, Teferi Time Raveler was the draw there for Christoph Prinz. Plays it, finds himself a Justice Strike as well, but it was Trail of Crumbs off the top of the library for Larson. He's going to lead off with Woe Strider, ostensibly to try to put some pressure on Teferi Time Raveler here, get something going, but the Trail of Crumbs could get Larson back in this game if given enough time.
Right. This was a big draw here from Christoph, though. Not only does he have the Justice Strike in hand to deal with the Woe Strider here, which would threaten the Teferi that's in play, he also found Wilderness Reclamation. And Wilderness Reclamation, even when you have no cards in hand, in conjunction with that Castle Vantress in play, will allow Christoph to just continue drawing relevant threats throughout the course of this game.
Let's try this.
Oof. Not a whole lot going on here for Larson. Finds a land again, plays the Trail of Crumbs, and it's kind of Trail of Crumbs or bust here for Larson at this point. And you know this isn't going to go well. Christoph has the mana to start activating Castle Vantris and has so much extra mana thanks to Reclamation that it's not going to take much for him to kind of blow the doors off this game. And that was 2 to the bottom, so that's the only good news there for Larson.
Yeah, and this scenario, by the way, is exactly what I was talking about when we were talking about this in the previous match with Riku Kumagai. Sure, you can have hands with agonizing remorses and find ways to disrupt your opponents, but if you're not applying pressure, a lot of times the hand disruption is not extremely important, right? Because the Reclamation decks can just kind of eventually draw out of it. And that's kind of what you're seeing here.
Yeah, Christoph definitely having drawn better, but also helped himself along. You know, the first top deck there was Teferi Time Raveler. Well, that got him an extra card a little while later. Now Uro gets you an extra card, and you can see how this goes from here. Now, again, Larson can play that game. Ooh, hello, Bolas's Citadel.
Right, right. But Christoph Prinz actually keeping in Mystical Dispute in this matchup, recognizing that the most important threats are both the Corvold and the Bolas' Citadel, and needs to make sure that he has enough answers to that. So he kept the Mystical Dispute because the Jund deck is a little bit clunky, and just making sure that he has answers. And he's gonna dispute the Citadel if Larson goes for it.
Larson now in the tank about whether to put the Citadel on the stack. Now, there is known information here. Christoph knows about Bolas' Citadel, so Chris doesn't get to, you know, kind of play a cagey game with it, but he does still have to decide whether to just slam it or not. It may be tempting to just, yeah, it looks like he's going to. He's cracking Fabled Passage.
I think you have to.
Yeah.
Yeah, given that the Uro is in play, and that's actually putting pressure on Chris Larson, I think you have to go for the Citadel. If it wasn't, maybe he goes for the Ghost Rider here instead, but I think this is kind of his best way to possibly win. Cross your fingers, hope your opponent doesn't have a counter for your Citadel.
Well, as it turns out, Christoph Prinz had exactly that, fires it off. I agree with you, Paul. You know, you have to adjust your lines of play based on how much pressure your opponent's putting on the game or on you. And an Uro Titan of Nature's Wrath is a lot. It is the type of scenario that you know if you just sit here and take a couple of hits from Uro that you're not going to win the game. And yeah, so it made sense for Christopher to do that. Unfortunately for him, it didn't work out, and he is going to have to find another one of his haymakers, you know, something along the lines of a Corvold or another Citadel. Instead, he does find Cauldron Familiar. He has a Witch's Oven and the Cauldron Familiar with Trail of Crumbs. Normally, this is exactly what you want. At this point in the game, is it a little too slow, maybe?
Yeah, I mean, that's what it feels like. Look, you have your little card draw engine going here with Cauldron Familiar and Trail of Crumbs, but at the same time, Christoph has an Uro that's being triggered every single turn. Additionally, that Castle Vantris, at some point, Christoph is going to find that expansion explosion.
That's right. We've seen bottom from him, but at some point it's going to be bottom top, and at that point, Larson is likely out of the running for game number 2 here. Now, there's good news for Chris. He did win game 1. As I'll remind you that when we came into the match, we came in with 1 game finished, and that first game critically went to Christopher Larson. So he would have another chance if he can't find a miracle here in game number 2. Okay, he's going to bring back Woe Strider here using Escape. That does give him plenty of defense against actually getting hit by Uro. He also has the Familiar plus the Witch's Oven, so another good way to jump in front of Uro and not take the damage at the very least.
Yeah, and Christoph's just deciding whether or not he wants to use the Dispute here on the Woe Strider.
Top, bottom, and he put Kenrith on top of the library there, Paul.
That's a good reason to fire off that Mystical Dispute. Yeah, okay. When your opponent tops something with this much mana, you know that whatever it is they're going to cast, you're probably going to lose to.
He just scooped it up to the top.
He didn't even want to see what it was. I mean, it could have been a Shark Typhoon, right?
Right. Yeah. As it turns out, Kenrith, excellent in that situation. As I was talking about before, you know, Larson going for different ways to try to jump in front of the Uro and any other threats. But Kenrith, the Return King, gives trample to your creatures, making the chump block plan moot. And yeah, plenty enough pressure there on Larson for him to say, okay, you got me on this one. You know, the real critical juncture there was Bolus's Citadel goes on the stack for Christopher Larson. And in many ways, that was kind of a, do I have a chance to win? Because the one thing to remember is, yes, they can have absolutely absurd turns with Citadel, but this deck is actually quite good at, looking at a new card on top of the library with Trail of Crumbs or, sacrificing a land or whatever. And Larson didn't really have any of that going on at the moment. So that was not a guaranteed win, even if it resolved. He may have needed a turn or two to kind of really get a good engine rolling on it. And as it stood, it didn't resolve at all. And then the game really looked pretty hopeless from Chris from that point on.
Yeah. We did see just how impressive this Bolus Citadel is, specifically in this matchup. We saw him win multiple matches off the back of this card, and that's pretty much his game plan coming into this. You have all that hand disruption, get those counters out of your opponent's hand, and then slam down that Bolus Citadel and really hope that it sticks.
It's incredible when it goes. The first time that I saw it used against Teamer, which Teamer had applied effectively no pressure, so 18, 19 life or whatever when it hit. And I've played with the card. I've seen it before. I'm like, yeah, it's a great card. It does things. I underestimated the ability for this deck to look at new cards or shuffle or whatever, scry stuff to the bottom. It was resolve, win the game. I mean, it just literally was like this hit the battlefield and there was 9 things plus a Mayhem Devil and an activation. And that wasn't once, that was multiple times. It really is something that Christoph Prinz has to absolutely respect. This is a mulligan to 6 here already for Larson, and it's a 1-lander.
Yeah, he can't keep this hand either. Okay.
Well, this hand's pretty good, but you do have to put 2 cards back. Ouch.
Yeah, probably a remorse. Okay, yeah, it's a remorse and a cat.
Brutal. Not how things need to go if Christopher Larson's going to pick up the win here. Prinz, on the other hand, what does his hand look like?
I mean, Prince's hand is also a little bit awkward. If he can't find lands, it is a little bit clunky. He has a 2-tap land opener here with a couple of glass caskets.
Remember, Chris Larson's the one that earned his way in here by facing down a bad matchup, losing game 1, and then mulliganing to 5 game 2, somehow finding the win and finishing off the match. So let's not count him out just yet, but he's definitely going to need to see Christoph Prinz miss some land drops to make this work.
I wonder if he's going to go for... Yeah, he went for the Uro here. It's like, no, the way I win this game is you don't draw your lands, and I don't want you to cycle through anything here. We saw Uro also just win the game by itself in the previous game, so...
Oh, man. Is this a land? Oh, it is. It's a good one, too. It's Stomping Ground. There's a Woe Strider, though, so at least something to cast here.
Right,
although there is Mystical Dispute ×2 in hand for Prinz. He's likely to fire off one on basically anything that Larson plays here.
Yeah, and this does mean that Christoph can't cycle the Shark Typhoon, which lowers the chances that he can draw land number 4 to play a Wilderness Reclamation this turn.
Here's Ether Gust, and there's another Agonizing Remorse. We're going to see Agonizing Remorse now from Christopher Larson.
Yeah, and playing around the dispute here.
Yep.
And I would imagine that Chris is going to go for the Wilderness Reclamation here. All right, and Chris has some time, right? I mean, you got the Trail of Crumbs. You can cash your food in for a permanent here. And Christoph doesn't really have a whole lot going for him. An extremely reactive hand.
That's right. Just a little baby shark pecking in for 1 point of damage here. And Larson, a lot riding on this initial Trail of Crumbs activation. He really, really does need to get things rolling here. But, this is kind of a, so you're telling me I've got a chance moment here for Larson. He also has great information. He knows all the cards in Christoph's hand except for one.
He wants a Trail of Crumbs. That'd be a really nice one. Oh.
Okay, now there is a Mystical Dispute that he is aware of, but still able to perhaps find an opening here to land a Bolus's Citadel could be huge. I mean, that's a potential game winner, as we talked about just a minute ago. And Prinz does not know about it.
Yeah. So
Like, he might just be like, oh, you know, like here, he could just be like, untapped Hallowed Fountain, I'll just play Kenrith Go.
is he going to play Kenrith here?
Because if he does, he's going to get Bolas' Citadel, and it could get really ugly. It's untapped, and there's Kenrith on the stack and on
Citadel
the battlefield.
time.
So this is where Larson gets to go,
man.
look what I found, baby. Okay, there's a land. He can't find another one.
Oh, no.
Oh, an immediate Overgrown Tomb off the top. Oh, brutal. So back-to-back Overgrown Tombs there for Chris Larson means the fun will stop there for him. But he does have Bolas' Citadel. Is there an answer for Prinz? No, right?
He doesn't. So he's going to take 6 damage here, and Chris is going to get another chance to kind of try to go off with this Bolas' Citadel. And look at what Prinz is doing, because he knows that he doesn't really have a good way to stop the Citadel. He's trying to apply maximum pressure and deal as much damage as he possibly can so that Chris Larson can basically cast less spells off of the Citadel.
This is amazing. He's almost applying the maximum that he can. He's going to leave up Ether Gust, it looks like, but oh my goodness, 8 damage is going to hit Christopher Larson here. That is, unless Christopher just says, you know what, heck with it, I'll put another counter on. No. So that will knock Christopher down to 11, giving him less wiggle room. Oh no, another land.
Oh, he's got one more card to look at here.
Oh, 4 lands in a row from Christopher Larson. And now the door seems to be shut here, right?
This is just a lethal attack here from Christoph.
And that's going to do it. Christoph Prinz is going to pick up the win here. Larson toying with the concede button, but he is going to make Larson play it out. But there you go. Good game and a concession. And that's Christoph Prinz advancing once again. Very impressive showing here from Christoph. I really like his line of play there as well, Paul. You pointed it out. He said, okay, fine. If you're going to get to untap with this Bolas' Citadel because I don't have an answer for it, I am going to put maximum pressure on you life total wise.
Yeah, with the way the clock ended up working out with exactly the resources in play, he basically pumped the Kenrith to have 2 mana up, so he could still have the option of casting Ether Gust in case Chris Larson had something like a Corval, the Fey Curse King on top. Because sure, Chris can put it on top, but he's going to have to take another 5 damage to be able to recast that spell. If Chris finds nothing, he still has exactly enough damage to put a counter on Kenrith, untap, put additional counters for a lethal attack.
That's right. So beautiful stuff there from Christoph Prinz. Gets the job done. We are going to take a commercial break. When we come back, though, we'll have more from the Players Tour Final. Don't go anywhere. Mainly for this type of scenario where, you know, if Tom says go, it's like, I don't really want to run my Nightpack Ambusher, you know, into something like even a mystical dispute kills it here. Oh, but he has a backup dispute. Okay, I spoke too soon. So Asahara knows I can resolve this under most scenarios. That makes sense then. So Omen of the Sea on the stack. This is another opportunity for Asahara to play Nightpack Ambusher and have it resolve. There we go.
Okay.
So that's another big step towards victory here for Asahara.
Well, there's one.
Mm-hmm.
And there's the battlefield tap though, but it can maybe chain you into it. Maybe it can chain you into another one. All right, left the card on top. But boy, that's a good draw.
It is Shatter the Sky on top of the library, but these mystical disputes are just going to take over for Asahara.
Yeah,
because we're going to see probably just land go here and then make a 3/3, and now the clock is very real. That is 7 power against an opponent on 14 life. And Tom is very crimped by mana here. Only 4 available. Yeah, Shatter the Sky is the type of card that you need to get back into this, but that's not going to resolve.
I didn't expect to see that on top. I expected to see a land.
Yeah, same. Here comes Mystical Dispute number 1.
How fast can we turn up the heat here? If we play Brazen Borrower now,
we can get in for 10. Does that do anything?
I'm not sure how much it matters. Let's see, because you're attacking for 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That means like if a Shadow of the Sky was to be cast and killed everything, which it's not going to, yeah, we're done. We're done.
It's going to be game because Mystical Dispute in hand just says you don't get to resolve anything. Yeah. Tom White scoops him up, and we have our champion. It's Akira Asahara.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to coverage of the Players Tour Finals here from the virtual news desk. I'm Maria Bartholdi. I've got Cedric Phillips and Riley Knight hanging out with me as always. And what an awesome another set of matches. Let's look at the bracket and find out where we are, because we've got some congratulations to hand out. Riku, Kumagai, Christoph, Prinz will be headed into the upper finals for a place in the championship match. A note, by the way, we've been saying how Riku's playing in Japan and it is around 3 in the morning over there. Question, he's got a lot of time off now as we head into the lower bracket and cruise our way through there. Does he take a nap? Question mark. What do you think, Cedric?
I'm getting tired just thinking about the question, but if I were him, I mean, got some time to burn, I'd be a little bit nervous, but you know, I feel like I could get 2 hours in, and 2 hours doesn't hurt. I would go for it. I got my bed really close to me too anyway, so it's kind of influencing my decision.
I don't know, man. Maybe you try and just stay up all night and push it, right? You take a nap, like, isn't that dangerous? You potentially sleep through your upper finals?
It's possible, but I mean, I don't know what I would do. I'm such a gamer that when I'm in the zone, I don't eat, I don't sleep. I'm just awake and I'm fine. Honestly, if I were him, I'd just be playing some matches on Magic Arena or something. So, you know what, I rescind. Stay awake, get some more games in, and just bulldoze through this thing.
Yeah, and you can see there as our lower bracket is getting populated too as well. We're about to head into round 1 of our lower bracket coming up here. Riley, but you've been talking to people behind the scenes. I want to know what you've been hearing from the players.
Yes, indeed, have indeed. Now, while obviously the burning question on everyone's lips is does Riku Kumagai have a nap? I can tell you that Christoph Prinz, who also has a couple of hours to himself now in the lead up to the upper bracket final, I had a chance to talk to him about what his perspective is, how he's feeling, and what he's going to get up to. Of course, in Germany right now, about 8:30 in the evening, so maybe a little bit early for a nap there. He said he's going to go for a walk, clear his head, a good way to sort of recenter, rebalance yourself, you know, especially when the pressure's on a lovely summer evening. Go and cruise around the streets of Hanover for a little while and just get your psychological ducks in a row. Then he said he'd come back in, check in with the coverage, maybe watch a little bit of Canis's stream as well, and get himself back into the zone for the big match that is coming up his way. So looks to me in a good position here. Prinz was a bit of a dark horse heading into the top 8, certainly one of the underdogs, and right now putting on an absolute clinic. And I know the winds of fortune have been at his back, and maybe with a cleared mind and a settled headspace, he'll be in a good position to contest his Japanese foe. Although, again, if Riku has a nap, well, who knows? Who knows what could happen?
You know, the funny thing is, Riley, we were doing the preview show yesterday, and nobody picked Prinz to win the whole thing. And he was in chat, and he was like, sad face, how come nobody's picking me? And now look at him. Revenge, sweet, sweet revenge on all of us for not picking him, because he's put himself in a great place to take the whole thing down in the championship match. But again, right now, we are headed to the lower bracket. And remember, these players, they got to be done losing, because another loss and they are out of the tournament. So let's take a look at our feature match here for the lower bracket round number 1. Who will we be seeing doing battle in elimination match between Raphael Levy and Michael Jacob. This is Azorius control versus this weird Mardu Winota deck that Jacob brought to break the whole format. First thing we're going to do is look at Levy's Azorius control list. Cedric, what do you think of this list in this matchup? Seems like, you know, he couldn't have really asked for a better one, question mark?
Well, they've played once already, and Raph Levy got the job done, beat Michael Jacob pretty easily. Now, here's the caveat, just like we saw with Raph playing against Kumagai. Sometimes you just don't draw the right stuff when your deck is 80 cards as opposed to 60. There is a trade-off there. Now, the trade-off, of course, is if you're an 80-card deck with access to Urine as your companion, you get, in quotes, kind of an additional card. But that trade-off is your deck is much bigger, which means it's going to be less consistent. So while Raph was able to defeat Michael Jacob earlier in this tournament, you know, the cards kind of lined up appropriately then. Will they line up appropriately here again? Only time will tell, but that's kind of the trade-off here. So do I think that Raph can win this match? Of course, he's already done it before, but could I see him losing this match where he draws all the wrong answers at all the wrong time like he kind of did against Kumagai? Absolutely.
All right, let's see Mardu Winota from Michael Jacob, the meta-breaking deck that he brought to the tournament. Okay, so what does Michael Jacob need to do here, Cedric, to take down Raph in this revenge grudge match?
Well, he's got to get back to doing what his deck does best, which is kind of 1-drop, 2-drop, Venerate Loxodon into Winota, and his draws against Alan Wu were not particularly good. Now, of course, Michael Jacob has had a fantastic run through this tournament, has been destroying reclamation strategies, but this is one of his losses. So you mentioned a little bit of revenge here, a little bit of a grudge match, perhaps, however you want to put it. I do think this matchup is difficult for MJ if Raph is able to just kind of draw his Shadow of the Skies and the other stuff. I mean, that's not the stuff that MJ was really that prepared to play against here this weekend, and understandably so, because these Azorius control decks are not that popular. Again, he's lost to it once already, but if I'm Michael Jacob in this spot, I'm just going to play my cards. I'm going to hope that Raph's spells don't line up and get the win kind of the easy way, that way.
All right, it's prediction time. Riley, who are you choosing for the winner of this match?
I've got to back my mate. I've got to go with everyone's favourite Prinz Hall of Famer, and I've got to say it's going to be Raphael Levy. No, listen, look, I've got a lot of admiration for this bloke. He's got the heart the size of a lion. He's, as I said, he's a fighter. He's a winner, and he's going to dig in deep. And look, he's been around the block for a long time. Both of these players are veterans of the game, but Raph really has been at the top of the, at the very top end of town for a long time. Well deserved, long overdue, and Raph's got to take it home for me.
All right, how about you, Cedric?
Give me Michael Jacob, hashtag Stream Team, someone who's been a long-time friend of mine, both from the Midwest here in the United States. I do think the matchup can be difficult, but revenge is a dish best served cold early this morning. So go get him, MJ.
All right, well, we've got the lowers coming up. It's elimination time. Don't move. We'll be right back.
So again, the pressure is on Nelson, as Matthias has been able to continually come up with the things that he needs.
Could he not have cast Callous Dismissal and have just won the game?
Just won the game because he would have had 7, 14, 21.
Exactly. That's a 3-turn call with the 2 Nexus of Fates and Wilderness Reclamation. He could have just won the game.
3, 6, 7.
14, 21.
He was at 22 then, right? Because he just took 3.
No, he gained 2 life because Oath of Kaya triggered. So he was at 20 life?
Yeah, you pay 2 mana, you bounce something, you get a 1/1. You have 3 lands untapped, you tap all 3 of them. Wilderness Reclamation triggers, you tap all of them, and you cast Nexus of Fate. You attack the next turn, you do the same thing again, and that is lethal.
Oh my.
A slight opening here for Brad Nelson.
There is a chance now here for Brad. Just making sure he runs the numbers here. He has plenty of lands. He can just Callous Dismissal, Oath of Kaya, attack Brad for 6, then next turn attack for 7, and Leverado has this. He's going to win.
Leverado has Mythic Championship 3 in his grasp. All he needs to do is fire off 1 more Nexus of Fate, and he's got lethal, and that is going to do it. Matthias Leverado works his way through an incredible field of top-tier professionals, and he is your champion. Congratulations, Matthias.
My goodness, what a game. He was so close to dead on game 2. He looked through every single possible card to get to the point where he could find, with the last remaining card to see, he found Nexus of Fate to come back in game 2, and then game 3 taking it down. Wow.
Unbelievable. Faces down the standard master